Siren's got a sound. Wasn't always pretty, but you take them however you can get them. If you're Port Adelaide, having started this season with 1 win and 2 losses, they came into this one knowing this is one they had to bank, and Josh Carr happy they banked it.
Hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name's Dave. As always, thank you for joining us here. Tuesday the 7th of April, we're recording this episode, which is our Round 4 review for our Round 4 win over the Richmond Footy Club in Melbourne. Going to be an interesting one to dissect. Was football played? Sparingly at times. It was certainly attempted to be played, but plenty to discuss regardless about our 13-12-90 to 6-12-48 result, a 42-point win for the good guys. Before I bring Jamie in, a little anecdote from myself, just to analogize how the game felt for me, and it's something that came up while I was watching it in my mind, because this is how I think. Those who know me, Jamie certainly knows, and we discuss it a lot. I'm a big movie fan. One of my particular loves being for horror, and one of my favorite directors in the kind of cult horror area is Lucio Fulci, of course, director of such films as Don't Torture a Duckling and City of the Living Dead, House by the Cemetery, all those ones. Godfather of Gore, he was known, which was probably almost undersells just how gory some of those films were. But a particular film came to mind while I was watching this game between Port Adelaide and Richmond on the weekend. Zombie, his 1979 film, in some parts of Europe known as the sequel to Dawn of the Dead, even though it had nothing to do with it. It's just how they marketed an Italian zombie splatter film. But there's a famous scene from this film. It's often used in posters and advertising for it, and any content out there in the modern sphere of cult film uses this image a lot, of a hapless lady about to become a victim to the titular zombies, hiding in a closet, and getting a zombie arm comes through, grabs her by the head, and of course Fulci, loving his close-ups of eyes, being an Italian director, and using a splinter that was on the wood of the door that she was hiding behind, a slow motion screaming pull close up of an eye just being impaled on a splinter. And I thought, as I was watching us turn the ball over and over again, and then Richmond turn it back over to us, and then us turn it back over to them, I thought, geez, that looks like a good idea. Just my eye being impaled on a splinter. And I thought, I'd love to be living in a Lucio Fulci film right now. So, Jamie, good evening. Did you think that way? Did you think about your eye being impaled on a splinter, or is it just me as I watched that at times often horrible game on the weekend?
Good evening, Dave, and good evening to everyone listening. And shout out to Travis Wakeling, on producer at SENSA. Little Twitter activity there, little tissue on the face, just for those playing at home, in reference to our latest reel. But yeah, look, gonna be honest, I did want to do probably that and much more whilst watching the game live. Any form of self-harm would have probably been better. Not to make light of self-harm, if you're struggling.
Take care of yourselves.
My thoughts are with you. Look after yourself. Yeah, reach out. But now, and because on the flip side, because I am an apologist beta cuck that wears teal-coloured glasses, the game wasn't as bad on replay as we tend to find out a lot of the time. Just the heightened emotion of watching games. And look, that's not to say it was a fantastic game that was just filled to the brim with elite skills or anything like that. But once a theme is developed while watching it live in the hive mind that is Port Adelaide social media, you can get, a bit caught up in the moment. And look, I was in and out of the game, just at my wit's end on many occasions. It really was aerial ping pong for large portions of the game through turnover and poor skills, like you mentioned. But like always, returning listeners and new listeners will understand that we've mentioned it before. We do tend to watch a full replay, and with the emotion stripped back and the result already said and done, it is actually a much easier watch, particularly when we win. And interested to see, if you echo some of those thoughts, or maybe, like I said, I'm an apologist, cucktard, and I need to just fucking get a dose of reality.
You're a, I mean, it's not a Hinkley sexual anymore. Is it a Josh Carr sexual now? Is
that yeah.
What's
That'll
the term
go for now.
Motor vehicles, whatever that is,
like autophiliac or something like that.
Car sexual and autophiliac. No, you do bring up a very, very good point, and it's something that I thought we'd get into as a bit about, like, when you do, and this is part of the fun, a relative term at times, watching Port Adelaide in the last 12, 18 months, but part of the interesting aspects of the fact that regardless of the result, we put ourselves through a replay is because you take the emotion out of it. Sometimes you can get like sometimes watching a loss, you can get frustrated again and really annoyed, but you take a little bit of the emotion out of it and take a step back, and it's kind of like watching, watching from afar, and you do, especially this game, watching it back, I was like, oh, there were some good skills at times. It was just like sparing and just in it didn't really make sense. That's kind of the jarring nature of the game, is like that moment when there was no pressure, just kicks undercooked, gone sideways, shanked. And then at moments, there was really good moments of, real individual just kicks on point, great moments of play, particularly our ability when we could get it going with some good disposal to rebound from the defensive 50 to the forward half. So there was moments, to your point, and ones that I'm sure we'll talk about at times during this review, because we still won by 42 points in the end. Interesting aspects of the stats as to whether that's deserved or not, but I think by and large, it is what it is. We won the game by 42 points, and we were the better team in those moments where disposal actually was good. It's, to your point, it's an interesting one. That's the benefit of watching the replay and enjoying it without the emotion involved. Because in the game, particularly in the early second half, when you kind of felt, and the commentators certainly were rooting for the momentum of Richmond, when you felt
were they? I'm not sure any Port Adelaide fan got that vibe whatsoever.
Oh, fucking Jared Healy, who's just like, at least should be suspended for that. I mean, by the way, just Jared Healy's commentary in general was some of the more, I mean, if there's anything that's worse than any of the disposals we saw on the day, was Jared Healy just opening his mouth in the commentary box.
It was like like old uncle or grandpa just sitting on a rocking chair in the corner, but they've just given him a microphone. It's just, he's had a good game, but pushing him in the back over there, I reckon. And he gets a hip flask out of his jacket pocket. Didn't make mention of the push in the back by Mackelty Lafau in that non-mark to Morris Rioli Jr., but too busy just lauding a mark that is debatable whether it was actually a mark or not. But commentary willing Richmond their first victory for the year aside. There were portions of the game. There were a lot of positives to take out of it, amongst some of the more upfront opportunities for improvement, to put it in a coachy, businessy, leadershipy type of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we saw a lot of, I mean, the particular transition, like, it's interesting how we set up from the defense, and I guess we can get right into it and just kind of talk from there, and then we can get back to some of the areas I'd love to talk about. There's a couple of commentary moments, both good and bad, I want to talk about later, but we can do that. We can dive into the review and get into our work there. Obviously, we start the game and we realize, Darcy Byrne-Jones has been tasked, and you just, I know you said off air that you watched his press conference from today. I read the anecdotes on the Port Adelaide website. I didn't get a chance to actually watch it, but I've read a bit about what he had to say, and essentially it's just Josh Carr came to him during the week and kind of said, "This is what I want you to do." Essentially, I'm just paraphrasing from what I read, but you can expand on it as well. Don't need you to be a hero back there. Don't need you to be best on ground. Just need you to go back there, lead. And this is a key point I want to make, comparable to our game against West Coast last week, where I think we lamented a lack of leadership at times in moments. And with the Connor Rosie injury in mind and his ability to go back at times, I think there was a very kind of a conscious decision that Darcy Byrne-Jones can do this. We're a little bit light on down back. We're not going to be bringing Todd Marshall back yet. Brandon Thatcher isn't coming back. Darcy Byrne-Jones is 30 years old, former member of leadership group, a former All-Australian in the backlines as well. So it's not like he can't do it. He started most of his career. He's played most of his career there still, even a couple of years in the forward line now. It seems a very kind of salient decision in hindsight, despite the fact he's somewhat inexperienced there as far as the modern AFL goes.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that I had was it's a great insurance policy for us. It's not something that I think any Port Adelaide fan is going, yeah, let's peg DBJ back in the back line because, like you said, he spent most of his career there, All-Australian there. We all know the goings-on of DBJ's career. A DBJ that I think it's worth reminding everyone that this is a guy who toiled away for 2 or 3 years in the SANFL, working hard, nipping at Ken Hinkley's heels as to like what he needs to do, when can he get in the AFL side, and then in his first game, kicked a goal with blood absolutely pouring from his head, and then when he was getting ushered off the ground, went to go into bat for the then captain Travis Boak, who was getting a bit of argy-bargy with whatever opposition. I think it was an Essendon game with the opposition there. I think little portions of time like that are forgotten when it comes to certain players and when they become out of favour and whatnot. So it's always good bringing up things like that, I think, because, yeah, like you said, that little moment is kind of iconic. Just the blood pouring and true, yeah. And then, yeah, pushing away the doctor just to go into bat for his captain at the time in his debut, which is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not wholesome. It's I can't remember.
I mean, it is. It's
enriching.
Yeah. It's I guess heartwarming and yeah, it's iconic imagery. Like I can, as soon as you started talking about it, I could picture that kind of side profile image of him celebrating it, or as he's watching the goal go through almost, and there's blood pouring down his face, and it's just like it's kind of what you remember of DBJ, and he's played his career fairly much like that in the sense there's games and moments, like he's not a perfect player, and that's why he's got some of the kind of divisive he's divisive in the Port fan sphere. But I think most who have a fairly level-headed view of what Port Adelaide are doing and what they're trying and tasking players to do on game day, whether it be forward or back for DBJ, that while he has his bad moments and bad games like any player does, he by and large applies himself very, very well, often up there, depending on what role he's playing. When we're looking at pressure act numbers or tackles and whatever, like he'll be up there in those areas. And, you know, probably the point that Carr made or DBJ made in his press conference today about what Carr had tasked him with was like partly to be a leader down there as well for a somewhat inexperienced backline.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. You've summed it up pretty well there. Yeah, with the back six that's lacking in experience overall, obviously with Farrell and Aaliyah excluded in that, there's some players, I would say particularly Josh Lai, Logan Evans, for example, Jace Burgoyne when he floats. And yeah, we all know DBJ's limitations. I think, in that All-Australian year of 2020, our game plan kind of suited the way he played and it kind of masked some of his deficiencies. Whereas like the period after that, it went to a really controlled type of game plan across the AFL competition where disposal by foot, and he showed that on the weekend, clearly isn't his strong suit. Although I think he's a fairly good kick for goal most of the time. So it's really interesting because usually for a lot of players in the AFL, it's the other way around. They're a really good field kick. And then when they kick for goal, they're, dodgeball reference again. But no, without hanging on it for too long, when the game started, I was just like, oh yeah, But we were wondering why they brought in a forward and not another, backman or something of the like. And yeah, it does kind of make sense. He knows how to intercept mark. He knows how to spoil. He knows back craft defending, whether it be back shoulder or playing in front. And yeah, I like the point you make about the West Coast game, and just when things were, the chaos was ensuing, for want of a better term. A leader like DBJ was up forward where we could have used his level-headedness, because he is a fairly level-headed person just generally. We could have used that on field, and while there was still a lot of chaos in the Richmond game, particularly late in that second quarter, where they kind of just got a wave of momentum. I thought he clearly contributed well. It's been pretty well noted afterwards when whether you look at the stats, coaches' votes, etc. It was a keen move by the coaching group to just shore everything up a little bit more back there. And it's much like anything with any line, it's the aggregate that we're looking for, and you got to pay credit where credit's due.
Yeah. Well, we can look at it as like the defensive effort, and it's interesting. And I brought this up to you as well. And I'm still watching the replay. I'm unsure exactly how to quantify why I think it ended up this way. But obviously, we won the game by 42 points. But I use Wheelo ratings as one of my favorite spots to get some of these stats, and certainly the X Score Twitter accounts no longer seems to be posting at the moment. So I don't get the field spread of shots and where they came from and whatnot. But X Score on Wheelo ratings has our expected score at 70.4 points and Richmond's at 67.8. So basically, we went 19.6 points better than our X Score, and Richmond went almost the same below it. X Score actually had it as a closer result. It still has us winning based on the stats, winning by 2 points or 3.5. But it's not as dominant. And there's some aspects of it, like, Liam Fawcett boots a few out in the fall. Steely Green misses a couple of pretty good opportunities. So they do miss some, but then we miss some as well. But then there's a few rush behinds, and both teams are sometimes kicking goal, attempting shots from distance. But I still feel like our defense played reasonably well. And I think that's why the X Score is possibly down. It was pressure on kicks, like even Steely Green taking that kick. There was a one where they tried, that was a real Benny Hill kind of bouncing ball around, but then someone tries to kick it through from 10 meters out, and it kind of just hits in one of their team's feet. But again, it was just chaos ball, and our defense was kind of, it's hard to quantify it because I think X Score just goes, that's a shot from that point. It's a fairly expected score, but our defensive pressure and just our ability to, kind of maintain within the chaos, even though it wasn't great, it was scrappy football. I think that's why the X Score is closer, is because it is very binary moments and, shots from moments. Because Richmond actually had one more shot for the game. The scoring shots doesn't reflect that, but they had one more shot for the game. But there was that shot that happened that came off one of their team's feet, doesn't even register a score, I'm pretty sure. So that's a shot, but it doesn't actually even register a point. So there's all these chaotic moments where there's shots happening, but we had defensive pressure and things. So all of that jumbled stuff I'm saying right now is to credit some of the defensive pressure. And again, that kind of the structure he went with in this game, again, with limited, a few injuries and whatnot, we're just, kind of putting the team out there that the coaches believe was the best for the day. Aaliyah obviously has a great day. Maybe Aaliyah's helped by knowing he's got a veteran defensive partner and someone leading with him like Darcy Byrne-Jones. Obviously, Kane Farrell has a great day with his rebound game, and particularly in the first quarter when a lot of things were going badly, Kane Farrell has a great game, and then it allows the younger guys around him to kind of flourish a little bit more. And again, it's not a great game, but I think kind of just the structure we utilized in the game against we have to say it's a depleted Richmond forward line as well, but you can only play who you're up against. We knew who we were coming up against, and we put the team out on the park that could do the job, and we did it. Richmond score 6 goals, 12. Liam Fawcett kicks 3 out in the fall, but they were shots from angles and distance out. That's what sometimes as a defense, you want to force, depending on what you're doing, if the best opportunities for the opposition forward lines are coming from that far out. It's kind of like in soccer, if you're forcing a team to take pot shots from 18, 20 yards out, sometimes they're going to score them, but you're playing the percentages and going, this is kind of like, we hopefully can defend against this all day. And by and large, we more or less did.
Yeah, I think the AFL score is one of those anomalies that I think the detractors of X score would probably highlight. I just, even after watching the game and all of the emotion that the Port Adelaide fans expressed about how shit of a game it was, and again, it wasn't full of elite skills or whatnot. I'm not trying to paint it out that way, but I think we deserve to win by
I don't think we're
at least
it again.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I might watch the last quarter if you told me to. But I think we deserve to win by at least 5 goals, and X score doesn't reflect that. I mean, when you consider that we kept this side nearly scoreless for a quarter, and it's obviously well noted the scoreline that we kicked in that first quarter. A couple of those were rush behinds in moments where, we didn't really force Richmond to rush it by a lot, but they did anyway.
Mm.
And then, we kick, 5 goals, 1 in the last quarter. Just the start of the second and third quarters were, but those were portions of really good football. I thought, obviously, the second halves of those quarters seems to be a bit of an issue. Over a few of our games in the first 4 rounds, just that the ends of quarters generally, but the second and third quarters seem to be our worst. I'm not sure if that's a complete vibe, but the West Coast game in particular, it was the second and third quarters that really got our kind of nerves jangling for that game.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think overall, we played a lot better football and deserved to win by a fair margin. I think 7 goals is great in the end, considering some of the downsides to the game. And there's some stuff, particularly in the forward line when we get to it, which I'll highlight, which I actually come away with it, and I'm like, yeah, I'll fucking take that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But with X score, like you said, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of shots that aren't really shots. And, it is that, like you said, X score is very binary because the butterfly effect doesn't occur off of expected score. It's just where you took the shot from on the field and the likelihood of you scoring a certain amount of points. But I don't think Richmond deserved to be that close in reality. I think the better team won, and the better team deserved to win by a fair margin when you consider everything, even the shitty skills. But the defensive line, what's more to say? Well, I mean, what's more to say about Aliir? I don't think enough has been said. Broadly, he's currently 9th in the AFL Coaches Association leaderboard across the AFL. Which would suggest how well of a start. And I put out a tweet after the game just highlighting the fact that he's kind of going under the radar. To paraphrase my tweet, he's kind of going under the radar a little bit for the start to the season that he's had. Obviously, a lot of defenders from kind of that top 4 to top 6 bracket are getting a lot of plaudits, but I think considering the inexperience that in our team, the changes, this new game plan, injuries that are affecting us, I think Aliir has started as imperious as we would expect Aliir at his best to play. I was really impressed with him, particularly setting the tone in that first half when it was ultra chaotic. We were fucking getting hammered at clearance. The midfield couldn't switch on or couldn't connect with Jordan Sweet, because I think Sweet had a great game across the board, which we'll get to. But our midfield couldn't connect with him for whatever reason, and our defense was constantly being put under varying degrees of pressure, which Aliir just came to play. And again, it might play into this responding. I brought it up in our preview. Now that we've gone loss, win, loss, we're in a bit of a respond to a loss type of funk. That might play into it too, because I thought just beside Aaliyah. I thought Kane Farrell's first half was sensational as well. Those are the two best players on the ground up to halftime, in my opinion. And so it was a bit shit to see Farrell obviously rolling his ankle. And he did look, I thought he played out the game fantastically well, but he did look a bit ginger after halftime, although playing. And I haven't seen anything to suggest that he'll miss. It's just one of those aggravations that you have to deal with as a footballer sometimes. But those two guys are, for me, at halftime, clearly the two best on, considering the circumstances and particularly some of the storm that they had to weather and that wave of momentum that Richmond got late in the second quarter. Which might I add, so that was actually the Maurice Rioli mark. That starts from a possession chain where DBJ actually kicked it on a wing, and I fucking swear it was touched. But a Richmond player, I can't remember who it was on the wing, it got paid a mark. And I'm pretty sure if you watch it again, which no one will, including us, all of the Port Adelaide players in the vicinity were kind of lambasting the umpire, saying like that was touched. That ends up being the chain of possession that leads to the Maurice Rioli mark, non-mark, that gets their first goal, which is, what's that? 20 minutes into the second quarter.
Yeah.
And that starts that little wave of momentum.
Yeah, I noted down at 5 minutes 30 to go in the second quarter that we were up by, it was 37-3 was the score. So they essentially halve our score, halve our lead in about 5 minutes of gameplay. Goes from 34 points to I think 15 points. So there's a few points in there as well. So just a real rough, but like you said, kind of a momentum switch that maybe wasn't deserved. But they started pushing and put the pressure on us. And again, regardless of ill feeling about maybe a missed touch, we've still got to kind of handle that pressure a little bit better. But
agree.
The benefit of getting it happens in a lot of sports that swings back and forth like this. Particularly. Basketball's a good comparison. Is like for 4 quarters, you can have your runs where you get up by 20 points in basketball, but then you can peg back pretty quick when another team puts the pressure on and goes on a run. The benefit of being a side that can take advantage, and which we feel like we maybe didn't at times in that first quarter, but we were up by 34 points. They get it within 15, but then we're able to just peg it out again and get it out, and ultimately win by 42 points. So. But again, we would like to step on the throat a little bit better than we are at the moment, so that there isn't even that discussion. But ultimately, it didn't hurt us in this one, like it did against West Coast. But again, this is another lesson in, when you get up by, we got up by 29 points against West Coast, and then let them peg it right back. We get up by 34 points against Richmond. They get it back to almost 2 goals. Didn't get as close as it did against West Coast, and ultimately. Probably Richmond just didn't quite have the weaponry to really, really push it on. But, there's some lessons to be learned from both of these games, with a win and a loss coming out of both of them. To be learned, or a lot of things to be learned in midfield. You kind of brought it up, and to start with there, and I guess we can go there. I think that's a good place to go before we go to the forward line. I think,
can I just cut in? I've just got a couple more notes. For the defense, and these are kind of quick, just quick ones off the top. I thought Josh Lai looked comfortable still at the level. Another thing that I appreciate is that he generally looks to create when he has the football in hand, which I think is good. It just kind of shows
he's silky. He moves in
a level of endeavor.
Yeah, he's a composed, smooth, silky mover. Surprising me with how composed he looks. He got selected, so I assume the coaches thought he was ready. But it's still like when you hear his story and where he's come from, and then coming to the side, you're just like wondering what you're gonna get out of him. And yeah. To your point, quite. Just does his work and does it in there's some flair about it too, without being over the top.
He has a crack, and well, I think we're now seeing why. I guess Chad Corns on radio now, who was a assistant coach, and just some other other coaches and the chat about him, why they were forecasting his ability to play at the level. And he's clearly raw. He's young. But after 2 games, I like what I see. I really like what I see. 14 disposals at 71%, 300 meters gain. He's getting marks. He's getting change of possession. He's doing what all you could ask for, especially out of a 2-gamer that's come in from suburban Melbourne football. No, I really like it. Lockie Jones, 2 overs in now. Still some Lockie Jones. If his first over there was maybe 3 good balls, maybe there was 4 or 5. No, so 2 good balls in the West Coast game, and maybe there was 3 or 4 in this game.
There was a mark that he dropped on the wing at one point that I was just went, for fuck's sake, Lockie! Like I know that you can take those two. Like, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. Yeah. But gather round, he'll be into his 3rd over, and as a D-grade limited overs cricketer in the Adelaide Turf League, I'm speaking from experience of people who need a couple of overs to get into their work. So this is now when we see Lockie Jones start to get into his work, unfortunately. Because of Lockie Jones, who is into his work and he is into his 3rd and beyond overs, I like it. But this was definitely a second over after a spell. Lockie Jones game. He just does nothing to take the monkey off the back, whether it be Port Adelaide supporters or Dwayne Russell and Jared Healy in commentary. So, look, I'm not dropping Lockie Jones.
No,
I just want him to just hit the deck hard over 1, not over 3. So. Yeah, those are the in terms of the defense, those were the 2 kind of notes, because I've just found myself looking at some of those mid to bottom tier players, because those are the people who are going to shift the needle and contribute to our wins when you cancel out the guns at the top.
Yeah, no, very good points to bring up, and particularly Josh Lai. I did have a few of my rewatch notes, just moments I enjoyed of his game. There was a particular, just a defensive moment. He had this, I think it was like halfway through the first quarter, there was a spoil he did where it was just real fundamentals. He just 2 fists strong up in the air, spoiled it, went towards the boundary. It's a spoil. There's no lasso or anything like that, or it might have been a defensive 50 anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. But it was just real solid fundamental, salt of the earth kind of footballer stuff, but executed very well. But then he had a couple of nice handball chains and stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that was like the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th quarter, whether he tries to mark that. So I think he's got license to go for that. The odd 2-fister, it is a bit polarizing. He killed the ball, which is just tick for a defender under pressure. But just from what we've seen of him, I think he's trying to take that mark if it's, once his nerves have settled into the game and got into the game.
That first quarter against West Coast, he took some great overhead marks, kind of like cutting off the supply, like when West Coast were really and kind of killed any West Coast attacks in that first quarter and helped us out there. So yeah, no, you are right. But I still love that he just, whatever he's doing, generally, he's doing quite well and showing that he's good, good skills, good eye, and particularly just some of the game intelligence and eye for the game stuff that he's showing already is promising. So. Midfield, where it gets a little bit funky, 13-3 clearance deficit in the first quarter was alarming, and it kind of doesn't get, I guess, throughout the game, doesn't get too much, but we even it up a little bit, and, Zach Butters gets into his work in the second half, but really it's another story of just like, for 18 months ago, you and I were really lauding our midfield as the point that we could kind of lean on, and by the end of the game, we are up by 3 on clearances, so we do even it up and turn it around. But it kind of does maybe, I don't know. There's just it's just the CBA mix, and I guess we are missing a few players, and we're trying a few things. And Jason Horne-Francis is still, I think, only had 30% CBAs, and it's being used in interesting ways. And as he comes back from injury, though, Josh Carr has, I think, said that his preseason is done now, so to speak. He is.
After the West Coast game.
Yeah. It is still, Jordan Sweet has a good game, and obviously, an inexperienced ruck opponent in Samson Ryan, but he has a good game. But we're just not able to. We weren't able to, transition that into some proper dominance, which I was hoping to see. Whereas, but it was. We do have to caveat that by say they did go up against a reasonable, probably the most experienced line that Richmond has was there.
Mm-hmm. Which we discussed in the preview. And again, thanks for those guys and girls doubling up on your Creed fix for the week and joining us for the preview, which I will note while I'm talking about it. And Patreon members from last year will know that we tend to kind of divulge our overall thoughts of the AFL circus on our preview shows as well. It's a bit of a preview show and speculation, but also a bit of a old man shouts at cloud about the AFL and Port Adelaide's place within it too. But so if you're not already listening to the preview shows and you're interested in our thoughts about the news cycle of the week, then we're generally talking about that on those episodes too, amongst our speculation for the game ahead for Port. But but back on Richmond, we did discuss, Prestia, Jack Ross, Tim Taranto, name escapes me, the other person, Jacob Hopper, that they got from GWS. So, like you said, their most experienced line, a line of ours that we look at certain players and we think of quite handsomely, but it's worth noting that Ollie Wines didn't play the first, 22 minutes of the first quarter either. Which was deliberate. And Kari said afterwards that it was, time management, deliberate, and that his minutes will go up as over the next couple of weeks, if not immediately into this week.
A couple of days before the game, it was announced they managed minutes. So I don't think that was. I think we knew it did we talk about it in the preview? I'm pretty sure we didn't, and so that was known. So it was still odd to see, and that maybe is a part of why we just couldn't quite get into the midfield work in the first 10, 15 minutes. Is like there was plans for Ollie Wines to be involved in it, but he wasn't involved at the start, and luckily that clearance dominance didn't hurt us. But to your point, it was Ollie Wines would have been a fit Ollie Wines not on managed minutes would have helped in that first 14 minutes of gameplay, so to speak, of that kind of clearance differential.
Perhaps it would have, but I think it's noteworthy that Zach Butters got a bit of a stern talking to at halftime, and then played a fantastic second half. All of these things contribute, and perhaps they weren't as switched on as they need to be. Like I said earlier, I thought Jordan Sweet, and like you mentioned, coming up against an inexperienced ruck, and a ruck that at certain times got a bit of ahead of himself. Sweet was dominating hit-outs, and we just couldn't. And these are the interesting inner workings of a midfield group and a ruck stoppage setup. Just how they're communicating, but also what the opposition is setting out to do. Maybe they planned to lose the hit-outs, so to speak. I don't know, but what was clear is that Jordan Sweet was winning hit-out, and we weren't benefiting from it in that first half period, and we were getting made to pay on clearance. And it is an important part to win, just due to the fact that you're playing with even numbers across the board from a center stoppage. So while it was good to remedy it, this is all well and good to say after a 42-point win against Richmond, but I and I'm sure a lot of other people did think, like, if we're doing this shit and these poor passages of play skill-wise, if we're doing this against some of the better opposition, like, we're being put to the sword. And that's probably what stops people enjoying the good parts of this game and kind of forecasting once we get out of this kind of cushy opening 4-5 game period in our schedule. Once we get into the tougher games, stuff like this is absolutely going to kill us. I've heard contested possession being thrown about, that we lost it. But when you consider the free kick differential, I think we actually win it if you eliminate free kicks from contested possession. So that type of thing for me is taken with a grain of salt, because I think our endeavour in that regard was a lot better, particularly when you compare it to West Coast. But unfortunately, free kicks go under contested possession. So when you're winning free kicks by however many it was, it tips the contested possessions in your favour. So I guess it's just clearance, like really taking advantage, because I think Jordan Sweet is, in terms of the season, is really getting into his work now. And he did finish the year last year as one of the better hit out to advantage ruckman in the competition, or hit outs purely. One of those two. I think he was finished in the top 5 for one of those two stats. And there's no reason why he can't do that again. He looks fit. He looks determined, in my opinion. Maybe it was not playing round 1 is kind of sticking with him a little bit. And Stuart Dew mentioned that the game starts with him, and which kind of makes sense in a way, because, yeah, ball up, etc., etc. So if we can, now that Ollie Wines is into his work, we just really need to connect and get our balance right. You've spoken about CBA balance. We've spoken about overall balance. There was a couple of notes to come out of our midfield group as a whole. You know, obviously players like Zach Butters and like Ollie Wines will be better for the run. He kind of gets a mulligan in his first game back. Jason Horne-Francis, like you mentioned, when he went in there, while he did kind of have a few average disposals, he's actually getting his hands on the ball, which I think, to start off the point, we were struggling to do for a large portion there in a midfield, in a stoppage sense.
I noted just a random moment, like the first CBA of the second half had JHF in there, and it was a nice little, I think we got the first clearance out of there because it was JHF, Butters, and I can't remember, there was like a little handball chain between 3 players. I can't remember the third player that took the kick and I assume went inside 50. At the start of the third quarter was, and JHF was in there, and there was a little bit, you could just see that class that was involved in the kind of the burst that JHF can have, and with Butters involved there as well. There was a few moments where it was just in that second quarter. There was one that really annoyed me, actually. It was a commentary thing again. There was a Ollie Wines handballs it to Zach Butters, and Butters kind of fumbles it, and it goes off his knee almost, and then ends up in a holding the ball decision. Garrett Healy just goes, poor handball from Wines there. I'm like, no, it fucking wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, I remember that.
It kind of, you can kind of see it's the reverse angle, but you can kind of see it kind of goes in front of Butters, and then it kind of does a weird bounce off. Like, I assume it's off his knee again, where we're not seeing the actual contact of the ball, but you can see it does touch Butters. And Butters is the kind of player that Ollie Wines knows, put that handball out in front of him so he can grasp it on the run. It's not like you're putting the handball like you're in a standing still handball drill. It's you're putting a handball out in the motion of Butters. He put it in the wheelhouse that Butters can grasp, but that's what you've got to do. So there was a few moments where it was just disconnect and things like that, and bad handling, bad disposal.
I think Zach spent it before he earned it in that occasion.
Exactly. Yeah, and then it ends up going forward and starts probably a little bit of the forward pressure that Richmond get a bit of luck or get a bit of joy out of in that late run to cutting into our deficit a little bit there at the back end of the second quarter. So, it's fine margins there. That's a sliding doors moment, really, that if Butters kind of just handles that well and it goes forward, then it's either a goal scoring opportunity or some stoppage down forward for us, and they don't get nearly as much luck down forward themselves in those last few minutes of the game. So, yeah, a sliding doors moment, and one that Jared Healy's commentary once again was left wanting. The one that I find interesting, both, I guess it's a little bit defensive again, as well as midfield. But Miles Bergman, we really just didn't see a whole lot of in this game. Particularly, I think he only had 3 or 4 touches at most in the first half. He had one at one point. Again, it ended up in a turnover that went down forward for Richmond, or a kick inboard for, I can't remember who it was from, but Bergman had more or less an uncontested mark above head that he takes 99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And he just dropped it, gets picked up, goes forward for Richmond. Again, don't know but again, it's just pressure from turnover, from a bad turnover as well. It's a really, a drop mark like that for Bergman isn't good. And I remember seeing that moment and just being like, I feel like it's Patrick Ewing in Space Jam after he lost his powers. Like, it's just like, what is he doing?
Yeah. I saw a bit of commentary about that. Yeah, through Port fans, just putting up the question mark about him. Yeah, just looking off the pace, and some people saying like he's kind of had a couple of injuries to start the season, which haven't helped, and I desperately hope that it is just a bit of shaking of the cobwebs, because we need him up and about, because for all, whether it's a minority or whatnot of the people who I guess are barracking for us to bottom out, I don't subscribe to that, as our shows last week kind of displayed. But yeah, we need more out of Miles, and I think, because I think he's playing off a half back or a back pocket, and just kind of getting lost.
Again, it's like he's just
yeah.
It's similar to the JHF up forward to midfield discussion that has been in the media a little bit this week, and we certainly posted about it. And I'll give it back to you in a second. But yeah, the Bergman thing's like the opposite way. It's like, where are we using him? But he's getting even. JHF is, at least we're still feeling some impact from JHF, even if for the outside world it looks like it's not enough. Like we're kind of okay with where he's at, but Bergman's a little bit of a curiosity at the moment, and a worrying curiosity just for the short term.
Well, and I think we have an opportunity to get him more around the midfield this week, which I may get to at the end of this discussion, or maybe at the end of the show when we look forward to St Kilda. But I think it's time, round 5. And I'll just get on to, maybe some of the reasons why I do think there's opportunities for Bergman to get up around the midfield. After 4 games, I think it's time to send McKinlay back to the SANFL to get some, just to simmer down and gain some confidence, because Josh Card, I think, has said leading up to the season that he's picking guys on effort, to paraphrase. Maybe I've seen that being discussed, and I can't really question McKinlay's effort. And as a winger, he's running, all day, 70% time on ground. But it just seems that his head is spinning every time he's either around the football or he's got football in hand. And I'm not writing him off as an AFL player whatsoever. I think, what is he, 22 years old, 23 years old? He's had a taste of it, being the Gold Coast debut, where I think the majority of people were impressed with what they saw. But I think in terms of just cohesion and getting our game plan moving in a direction that we need it to get into our work this season, I just think it would be best for everyone potentially to drop him back and potentially give someone else a go who is performing at SANFL level, now that we have 2 rounds of that under our belt. I don't know what your thoughts are on him. Before I hand over to you, though, that's just my vibe. When I watched it back, he just, whether the ball's on the ground, there was that one where he accidentally kind of kicked it. We were out and we were open in the middle, in the center corridor, in the corridor, sorry. And he kind of just like accidentally, went to pick it up, accidentally kicked it out of his own hands, and it went straight to a Richmond player. And I think they might have scored off the back of it. They definitely went back inside 50.
Blood pressure was rising at that point. I can picture the exact moment you're talking about.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to hang him out to dry. I just think you've had a taste of AFL. You know what the level is. Maybe you're not performing, and like, wing's hard sometimes. I get it, but you're not performing at the level. So just go back, take a breath, get some confidence, and then rebound after you're performing at SNFL for a period of time, because there'll be opportunities again. I'm sure of it. The other player I want to just highlight before I hand over to you is, I think maybe Jack Watkins regressed to the mean a little bit more in this game. He did only have 64% time on ground, but 8 disposals at 37.5%. I'm not quite sure, if you just bear with me. No clearances as well, and that was something that he actually did contribute to in the game before this and in the first 2 rounds. So again, maybe opportunities to change the formation a little bit and to allow some of these players that are proven, or at least more proven than the 2 I've mentioned, to get a taste of that midfield action, and just to solidify our overall midfield group as a whole. Because if we keep going with this group, I feel that we're going to be exposed by better teams. And I think we have the makings of a better midfield group, but we need to get selection right.
Yeah. No, I'd absolutely agree there. I think, McKinley's probably the one that's getting less of the ball and probably looking a little bit more highlight. A guy like Jacob Ware probably had a decent game, but like is still probably,
agree. That was going to be my next point.
Watch him going forward as to like how and who's available to possibly. Yeah, both our wing positions are very, very much, I think, open at the moment. McKinley's the one probably you wouldn't go. I don't think you'd go dropping both this week, but maybe you do. But McKinley, I think I definitely agree with you there. Because when you've got guys like Christian Moraes, who we've got a lot of raps on, I thought when I went to the trial, I thought Moraes, he's still quite a slender lad, but put on a little bit. He's young, but McKinley's young as well. Obviously, a few years on him, and those few years from 19 to 22, 23 are very, very important. I think Moraes has shown a lot, and he's certainly got the upside of Christian Moraes is certainly there. And you got guys like Will Brodie and whatever around, although we didn't see enough of Brodie against West Coast with it. We've talked about the 42% game time. So there's levers and stuff you can pull with the likes. And then obviously the guys we've got in there, Ollie Wines only played 55% time on ground. We're sure we'll see that build up. Lockie Jones. I was looking at Lockie Jones' name as I was about to say. Jason Horne-Francis only had 30% CBA. So there's midfield mixes there. And then you've got other players around there that you can throw in there as well. There's opportunity. And then obviously Bergman as well. A bloke that did have 80% time on ground, didn't do CBAs, didn't really, is being used in different ways. There's players that played in this game that aren't being used enough in midfield. And then there's players in the wings that can be both used on the wing and in midfield.
We're waiting in the wings for you.
There's opportunity there for sure. I absolutely agree with you. Very, very good point to bring up. And your point in the greater scheme of things is very important too. Is like I think that's why this game was so frustrating to watch, both live and then somewhat in the replay, is watching how that midfield group performs and knowing, we're winning this game, but what's that going to look like when we're coming up against the better sides? I particularly look forward to, we've got a showdown in a month or so, and those are games when you're playing, having a shit season, you just want to at least win those ones or at least be competitive. And I look at a performance like that and just be somewhat concerned. Not that the Crows are performing great in midfield right now, but they've got another month to try to get that right. And overall, they're a better team. So if we can't get our midfield improved by then, and the Crows do, then
sorry,
So
I just threw up in my mouth. Right.
I absolutely agree there too. That is your point though. Is like we want to be better when it comes to the better sides, and this is the concerning aspect of this midfield performance.
Yeah, I think it can be fixed, and then if we can get a midfield group that starts to hum, I do think we can expose Adelaide's midfield. But we've got some water to go under the bridge before then. Had a thought, lost a thought, but I do have another topic, or just another player in Jacob Ware. You mentioned it before in the discussion of making changes and whatnot. I thought he contributed much more in a fashion that we would expect from a 27-year-old pickup who granted, hasn't had an enormous amount of AFL experience for 27 years old. But if you are 27 years old, you need to perform at a particular level to keep your spot. And look, largely, I think he did. Being on a wing and only gathering 13 disposals himself, went at 80, just about 85%, 342 meters gain. He obviously got himself on the board with a goal, 4 score involvements, 5 inside 50s. I think it, like I said, where last week I was of the mind to happily drop both of our wings, which chaos, 6 in, 6 out type stuff in the end, going off that. But yeah, whereas this game in particular, I looked at his game overall and thought, okay, if you've lifted your baseline to that, stay at that, and hopefully have better games than that. But yeah, for mine, he's keeping his spot. I thought as a winger, he contributed where, like I said, much more in line with how a 27-year-old delisted free agent or whatever he was should contribute at. And because, like you said, there are some levers to pull. One player that I'm particularly looking at, though, is a Will Lorenz, who has had 36 disposals and 29 disposals in his first 2 SANFL games, who we have seen at AFL level, who adds polish, which is something that we desperately need right now, particularly coming off the back of this game, is some polish. And he's not afraid to get his hands dirty at ground level either, which he's displayed on a few occasions, even in that brief stint in the semi-final where he was the sub against Hawthorn, which was a fantastic night of football, and everything else. But yeah, so we can kind of get a bit team selection predicty later. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the midfield. I think there's room for improvement. And then, yeah, when you're looking at Lorenz and Murray, you're not going against that transitional ethos because they're young. So if you are to make the changes, you're not just bringing in, 2 guys in their late 20s who are past it and you're just trying to fill gaps to keep your head above water. You're still killing 2 birds with 1 stone, I think, in that vein.
Yeah. Will Lorenz is another good shout because he is just one that keeps putting in the work at the SANFL level and making every week. I'm sure selection looks at him and goes, "Oh, geez," and yeah, particularly this week, there's a few options there for sure. Anything else in the midfield? Free to put it out, but the forward line's probably the last spot to touch on before we get to the segments and anything else we've got. It's a hard game to kind of, there's obviously some bad kicking at times, and it's just poor disposal going inside 50 that makes the goal scoring opportunities a bit more difficult. But by and large, enjoyed again the work of particularly. Mitch Georgiades doesn't get as many shots in this game as we would have. He has his 2 goals by halftime and doesn't really present much else afterwards. So that's a little bit of disappointment there for Georgiades. But Whitlock misses one. Already we're looking and saying should get, but like he kicks another couple of really nice ones. And that shot that he has from 53 out that lands comfortably 3 meters over the line, just shading past the post. Whitlock having a 55-meter bomb in his bag that was reasonably accurate. Not obviously accurate, but it wasn't. He didn't shank it. He was close enough. That was promising to me. Lukosius has some goals and has some moments where he is involved upfield as well. So the 3 tools or hybrids or whatever you want to call them again kind of impress. They don't. No one kicks a bag, and it's probably disappointing that a bloke like Mitch, where he's at, doesn't kick a bag in a game like this. That's probably the only disappointment. Otherwise, again, disposal inside 50. Some of the lead up play was just disappointing, but the forwards, the tall forwards themselves, the keys, I don't have too much criticism for beyond just everyone's disposal was poor at times.
Got to say, I look at the forward line and I'm seeing Whitlock 2, Lukosius 2, JHF 2, Mitch 2. You've got Joe Richards contributing 1, Corey Durden, who kicked 1 goal, 1, and I could argue that he should have kicked 3 goals. I'm not
that's
unhappy.
one of those poor disposals I'm talking about. That one where he fucking just like he tried. He could have gone
went
for
to
goal.
pass it, kind of thing.
And Whitlock was open for the pass too. Like he could have. He had the two options, but because he thought about it too much, he kind of fucked up the option in passing and should have ultimately gone for goal. Because the Whitlock part, Whitlock had the separation from his defender. It was just, and he kind of dropped it out. He just dropped it too far in front. Whitlock still almost
Agree.
Do something with it. Yeah.
Yeah, a team with a higher level of confidence, and who's in some pretty good form. You're just nailing those shots, like Durden. For a traded player, an acquisition, I'm not dropping him. Like he's as a small forward. As a small forward, I think he's
quite small as well.
He is quite small. You're a forward, you need to kick goals. And in the case of Corey Durden, if people want to sit on how many disposals he gets, like, go for it. But he's getting shots on goal, which for me is the most important thing. And it's the thing that we were all wondering where it would come from with the exclusion of Willie Rioli and the fact that we didn't kick enough goals to get anywhere near wins or the 8 last year. And I think although he isn't getting a lot of the ball right now, I think his decision making is fairly good outside of that one where he just needed to put his big boy pants on a bit more and just seal the deal. You're running into what is effectively an open goal. Just fucking kick the goal. Jack Whitlock will be fine. Being a teammate is great, and credit to you for trying to be unselfish, but I feel that there's moments in a game of football where you have to be selfish for the betterment of the team. And that's one example. The other one, which I think will definitely you and I discussed, was JHF when he had that ball on the half-forward flank, and a JHF that's full of confidence, who's in form, is just burning every single fucking player and leaving him in his wake and putting that straight through the sticks. That didn't happen. So, yeah, there's examples of these poor, whether it be poor execution or poor decision-making through maybe a lack of confidence. The fact that we had an even spread of contributions does make me happy. Jack Whitlock is proving a phenomenal inclusion and is creating maybe not a headache, but if you wanted to go there, I'd let you, for the opposition, because he's consistently getting shots on goal.
Because he also gets involved. There was a moment in the wing, in the half-forward pocket where he kind of flicked a handball over the back. Like he gets involved in the play when it's at ground level as well. Like he's tall and lanky and a little bit of a, there's a Bambi on skates aspect to it, but it's also honestly not that bad. Like he surprises you with some of the stuff he does. I mean, was it Lukosha? Who was it? No, it was Jack Watkins' first goal was set up by Jack Whitlock over the one against Essendon, was a Whitlock over the head handball that just was instinct and football now stuff. And he did one of those on the weekend again, didn't come off to anything. But I just remember I was seeing him at one point just fire a handball out of congestion in the forward pocket, trying to find a teammate that obviously hoping to open them up for a scoring opportunity. And it's just those kind of things happening that's just stuff that's outside of what we were hoping. We're just hoping that he comes in and plays a key forward role, can lead, and he does. He gets separation, he leads. That moment we were just talking about Durden. He got separation from his defender, and if Durden just executes the kick better, we're not having the discussion, because the devil's advocate for that moment is if Durden goes for goal and blazes wide, then the commentator's going, "Oh, Jack Whitlock was open." That's what would have happened, because he was open. He just put it too far in front of him. But he's presenting himself and regularly getting opportunities. He kicks 2 goals, 2 in this game. Could have been his first bag of 4 if he kicked accurately, and he doesn't miss by much on the couple. Again, one of those being from 50, so that's the impressive part. Georgiades obviously I think actually misses the hard one that Kelly Underwood brought up, the Ken Hinkley commentary when he goes for his first shot, but he kicks a couple. He just doesn't get the opportunity, Mitch, in this one as much as some of the previous games, but he does. You want, if Mitch Georgiades is held somewhat because of poor disposal or just other factors in the game, if he gets 2 goals, 1 from his 3 shots, then that's, again, what you want. It's better conversion rate than some games we've seen from Mitch, even if he gets more shots.
Yeah. We constantly ask Mitch for 4 shots on goal. He got 3, but like I said, we kicked 90 points with contributions from most, if not all, of our forwards, excluding a first gamer in Mitch Zatto, who I think from a defensive point of view ticked the box of what the coaches would have asked him to do. I think he had 5 tackles and 15 pressure acts. So would have been nice to kick your first goal on the... Yeah, exactly. Would have been nice for him to kick his first goal on the G, but, that's to be left for another day. He showed glimpses of what they selected him as an SSP for, and that's his kind of attack on the footy and not a backward step type of small forward play. But
second for tackles as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Going to go into bat for a couple of people as well. I could argue that Jack Lukosius had a better game than Mitch Georgiades.
I would enjoy that argument too. As in agreeing with you.
I had a feeling you might, but yeah, we had Jack all sorts. It was a real Justin Westhoff type of game actually from a Jack Lukosius. On the wing,
Westhoff a few times watching the replay. So I'm so glad you're saying that.
Yeah, I think of Justin Westhoff a lot, and I have a stubby holder with him on it, so that helps too. But no, Jack Lukosius, we gave up a first round draft pick for him. His brand was affected by Damien Hardwick's coaching of him, I think, and now, he's got this pressure of performance behind him. But I think he's kicked 8 goals or 7 goals in 4 games. I'm not quite sure, but
is that
400?
Is that similar to Durden? So that makes sense because I think Durden's on 7.
Yeah.
So
408 meters gained. Like he's had 6 marks. A couple of booming kicks that have just opened up passages to play for us coming out of the back line or on a wing. Some tackling there that I thought was above what we would expect of a Jack Lukosius or what people would... Oh, he's actually ended up... I'm maybe thinking of one particular tackle because that's all he's ended up with. Inside 50, though. He's kicked the 2 goals, 1 as well, like Mitch, and 2... particularly that long bomb, fucking sensational goal. Again, for me, like with any other line, it's what are we getting out of the group as a whole? I'm at this point in time, I'm not expecting a Jack Lukosius who played 3/5 of fuck all football last year to come out and dominate and put our team on his back. What I do expect from him as a 25-year-old player who is highly touted and highly talented is to do what he did on the weekend, and then in his bigger games level up from there. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. Just keep moving forward, and put all the doubters out of the equation. The other person I'll go into bat for is Joe Berry. Obviously, there's a lot of chat because a certain other person in the draft is doing quite well.
One thing I would... Russell, you betrayer. He brought it up at right after Joe Berry had a shot and goal or something.
Joe Berry had a shot from 50, and it quite easily made the distance too. I just wish, it would have been nice for him to keep the goal. There's a couple of things I would like to say. One is that Fremantle were trying to trade up to pick Joe Berry. So you could argue that they Stephen Bradbury'd their way to who they ended up picking. The second thing is that comparison is the thief of joy in any part of life, unless you are comparing yourself with your previous self. If you're comparing yourself to anyone else or anything, like, it's detrimental to your own well-being. I think one question that Port Adelaide fans need to ask right now is Joe Berry ahead of where he was this time last year? And for me, it is quite comfortably yes. And there was quite a few passages of play in this game, particularly up on a wing when he was moving up forward, where he split the eye of the needle with a few handballs there to open up passages of play on the centre half forward line or the half forward flank, which there was one, and then there was another passage of play where he sidestepped a couple of Richmond players to again open up play entering our forward 50. We may have to go into bat for him, several occasions this year. But like I said, is Joe Berry ahead of where he was this time last year? For me, it's quite clearly yes. And as a small forward, the output will come. I'm not unhappy. I'm not dropping him for anyone else. That's for fucking sure. I'm happy. I'm more than happy to stick it out with Joe Berry. His stats aren't lighting up the page. Like, I get that.
But things he's doing, like with it's again, I mean, with JHF's Horne-Francis stats aren't lighting up the page. It's usage, it's role, it's experience. There's certain things that are coming into play. He had the tackle that got him the goal scoring opportunity, which he made the distance, as he said, just faded. Great tackle. He had a diving mark at one point from a poor disposal, but he dove and made. I can't remember if it was a turnover one or not, but he had a diving mark that was really impressive. He had some tackling moments. He had some pressure moments. He had some moments of class. There's all these things that, again, if you're listening and you don't agree, like I welcome the discussion, but like there's a lot of just little things that I'm seeing from Berry's positioning and game. It's just little things. Like he's just slightly like he's just a 5% off with a disposal or a moment but the intangibles that he's showing, the game intelligence that he's showing, and the understanding and some of the skills he does show at times show me that he's an AFL player. And your point about Murphy Reid's very, very correct, because we're getting compared a lot, and a lot of Port fans are doing it because we could have taken Murphy Reid, and Murphy Reid's a class player, and look, we would have been stoked to have him. Murphy Reid's also gone into a Fremantle side that was built for finals football last year. They're one of the, looking at them now and going, and they're one of the best sides in the comp and are up there as a flag favourite currently. And they were at times last year as well. Murphy Reid's gone into that side. He's shown his class and has been a plus point to that side, but Joe Berry's come into a side that's very, very much in transition. So there's factors in that. But yeah, again, Murphy Reid's probably just more ready at the level, but that doesn't mean Joe Berry will get there. I think that I did mention facetiously about Dwayne Russell mentioning the comparison and bringing it up on the broadcast, but Dwayne did also say the journey is long, or the road is long, and made it did make reference to the fact that it's not linear. Some players will just take some more time to get there, and then they still will get there and be, a great player and an integral player to a side. I think Joe Berry's absolutely got. I'm more than comfortable with him. And to the point about Murphy Reid and Port Adelaide, there's 14 picks before Port Adelaide took Joe Berry as well. So, if you're going to do the comparison as a thief of joy thing, then, Crows fans could sit there and say, well, we've got Sid Draper and he's barely playing. Like, Crows actually, how they're playing, would probably enjoy having a Murphy Reid in there right now versus the Sid Draper that's, but, to be objective, I think Sid Draper will be fine in the long term as well. He looked an absolute beast, so he was probably going to be fine as well. But there's a lot of as soon as a player's taken at 15 and they're compared with a player around him, I go, well, there's fucking all the other players. Where he was taken, there's a lot of players that were taken before Murphy Reid as well, beyond Joe Berry. So, and yeah, to your point, I'm more than happy with Joe Berry's. I think it's a very, very salient point that you made, that comparing from this point to last year, he's a lock in our side. I think at the moment, yes, we're not getting the output maybe we would hope for, but the side in general is still kind of learning a few things about itself. And when you've got Zach Butters having a quiet first half in this game and getting a talking to from Carr, then it's, Joe Berry's, a lot of players aren't alone in just learning some things about themselves in the way we're playing at the moment. So very, very good point to go into bat for those two. And I absolutely agree. And I had very, very similar thoughts to you as I was watching the replay. Jack Lukosius, Justin Westhoff comparison came into my mind. Swingmen, guys that can, range the kicks from the wing or halfback and then suddenly pop up forward and kick a couple of goals and all that stuff.
Love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Lukosius kicked a couple of two very, very different goals. Keep goal. They could come up later, but he kicked a couple of nice goals and was very, very impressed with that. No, more than happy. Like, yes, I want to see more from him. Like, Lukosius does have those moments that you go, oh yeah, that's one of those ones that the detractors are picking on. But then they're fleshing that out and not actually giving him the credit for the moments he does do well. Which I think, to your point, he had a lot more of those in this game than he had bad moments.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's very easy to lean into what people aren't doing right, and it's not all sunshines and rainbows. Like I'm happy with the even contribution. We've come off a period of Port Adelaide history where we have been over-reliant on one key focal point in our forward line, and I do think it's important to train our whole side into spreading the responsibility of scoring.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm most satisfied with coming out the back of this. I want 10% more from everyone. I want an extra goal on everyone's stat sheet. But the fact that, from quarter to quarter, another person stood up in a forward sense and kicked their goal or two goals. So that over the course of the game, we weren't heavily reliant on one player. That's what I want us to keep building on, because that's just going to make it harder for oppositions to manage us defensively if we have an even spread of contributions. And look, to call a spade, Joe Berry looked like a boy amongst men last year. Like, it's like you said, linear progress isn't linear for anyone. And some people burst onto the scene. Some people burst onto the scene and then they stay at a level for most of their career. Some regress. Some come in because they are a high draft pick, get a taste for it, and then they boom after. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's played, 16 games? No player deserves to be judged holistically after 16 fucking games of football. He's still got a lot of... there's a lot more Joe Berry to come before we can make sweeping judgments on whether that pick was worthwhile or not.
Yeah. Well, it's that, and it's like just, making judgments on someone who's 19 years old as well is just something you really, really shouldn't do. He's he's early in his career. He's shown enough for me to, warrant not even panic, just be comfortable that he's going to learn a lot and grow a lot in the next few years. But he's 19 years old and he will be fine. He's shown enough to me that I'm absolutely okay with his AFL bona fides and some of the magic skill that he could possibly have and provide to us in the future. Some very, very good points from you again. Anything else on the forward line? Feel free to bring it up. I think before we get to the segments, there's a couple of commentary moments to bring up. I think we've brought up a lot of the ones that... Oh, actually, sorry. A couple of points I wanted to bring up about the game before we get to that. It was brought up early in the commentary, something because I didn't get to watch the game live the first quarter. I was finishing work, so I jumped in about the second quarter. It was brought up a lot early in the game that was swirling wind, a bit of a odd day conditions wise for the MCG. I think one of the commentators brought up, whether it was one of the leads or colour guys brought up, that watching the kicking routines for both teams pre-game and their warm-ups, there was no consistency, the left to right movement for goals. So
I think it was Nick Del Santo.
Yeah, there you go. They brought it up a few times, but even some kicks, in field kicks, that just if they got caught up a little bit, there was just a little bit of uncertain. So I think not that that's an excuse for terribly poor skills, but there's you can say that that's a little bit of a part of how the game kind of started, and kind of once a game starts that way and it's kind of a malaise game, you can kind of but that's where the last quarter, to your point that you brought up earlier about, well, maybe I'll watch that one. It kind of like we finally kind of just settled into the game in the last quarter and were able to kind of utilize our better skill in moments to get through there. So that's one. And I've actually already forgotten my second points. Yeah, there was just a couple of points in the game, and nothing major. But the swirly win was one that I thought was in particular a good one to bring up. Oh no, umpiring as well was interesting. I don't think there's too many. Like, I just find the free kick count was kind of, lopsided. But I don't know if it was. There was a few just interesting decisions that I find the inconsistency of umpiring a little bit interesting, but I thought the one umpiring one that I actually wanted to bring up, though, that I find interesting more as just an interesting thing about the way the rules being applied at the moment. Did you notice in the second quarter there was a stand free kick called to Jacob Hopper? I'm pretty sure it was about only 2 minutes into the second quarter, and the umpire is yelling stand to, I think, Sweet and Butters maybe. And he's saying, stand, one of you, stand. And they're both kind of looking at him like, and both standing like statues. And then finally the umpire says, sweet, clear out. And so it's just like, what are we?
Yeah, just do that first.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like. I was just like, they need to, this is the
take
interesting
control
thing about when they bring rules into the competition, is like, you need to have already have thought out this. Like, I guess it's the first time I've thought of it, but I'm also not the one making up rules for the competition, so I don't need to think of this. You guys need to think of this when you bring it up. It's like, if you are yelling stand and two players stand, the umpire immediately should already know who the player they're actually saying stand, and saying stand, like, whether and direct it to the clubs that you need to say stand Butters, and that means Butters stands, and then the other players immediately know, I can jet out of here. Going stand, one of you stand for 2-3 seconds is just cutting his time, and then finally going sweet, clear out or something like that. It's just like, no, you need to be clear in your direction. You're the director of officiating on field. Just say, Butters stand, and and just going into just like random stand, one of you stand is like actually bad umpiring. So that was the moment. Like, the free kick, I don't have too many issues with a lot of things on the day. I think it was just a bad game and a lot of areas, but that's the one I wanted to key in on, just as more of a macro thing about the competition and how we're officiating and how rules are being applied in games, like across the competition. The stand rule is interesting already, and that one was just a real key indicator of just the unpreparedness of umpires in certain situations, of how to direct. When I watch sports across the world and their direction and explanation or a direction in the moments are very, very clear. Watching that kind of situation play out was really, really, it's not alarming. Like, it's just
Bush
bad umpiring.
League.
Yes, Bush League is the right term. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that one, but that one really, really.
I didn't.
It both amused me, but worried me at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because I think the broader AFL public, when it comes to rules, when it comes to officiating, we just want to eliminate as much doubt as possible. And like you said, yeah, for the person officiating the rules and more or less keeping the players in check, so to speak, yeah, you just make the call, because we've got this rule that says if you're in the vicinity of a mark or a free kick, you got to stand. But then it's like, well, yeah, there's clearly times in a game of football when there's more than one opposition player in the vicinity of someone who's taken a mark or gets a free kick. So who needs to stand? It's quite clear. It's been quite clear to me. I know it was maybe a confected talking point leading up to the season where people who should know and probably do know were like, oh, well, does it mean that 5 people have to stand? No, and that's just fucking ridiculous to think that that's not how the rule's written. But like you said, if there are players, don't leave it up to the players. The players already have fucking enough to think. Like, there are opportunities to take advantage. Like, take it out of their hands. Make the call, let the game go, and yeah. We're not discussing this tidbit.
Knows. Yeah. because we've also seen where all the players run off because no one knows who's going to stand. They immediately call a 50, and so in that situation, it's like I assume Butters and again, I think it was Butters and Sweet in that moment. If anyone rewatches,
they're concerned about that.
It's about 2 minutes into the second quarter, and yeah, it's like they're both concerned that they don't want to either run off but then the umpire in that moment, having already made the call and called the free, because I'm pretty sure it came from a free kick situation too, or something like that. It's just like the umpire should immediately know who needs to be standing, and then therefore not be yelling one of you stand, because both of them are going to be like, well, I'm one, so I'm going to stand.
Yeah.
Just say, if it's Butters you want to stand or Sweet you want to stand, say Butters stand, Sweet stand, and as long as the direction of how the rules being applied and dictated on field is directed to all clubs, then they'd immediately know, okay, that means I can clear out, or the one that's not mentioned, I clear out, obviously outside of the protected zone or whatever else that you need to do. But yeah, it was just a moment that I really went like, this is why, because I'm not wanting to beat down on umpires. Like, I'll call them cunts when I want to, usually at the game. But I just want to, you just want to make sure that the competition is being, because the umpires can help themselves and the umpiring department can help themselves by being better with this direction, both to umpires and then to clubs, and feeding that out.
Totally agree. No more notes.
No notes. All righty, Jamie. I think that's about it from me on the game. A few. There was a couple of Dwayneisms just to touch on quickly, because we do enjoy them. A shout out to Jurassic Park from Dwayne when unfortunately it was on the back end of us getting tackled, but when Rioli got Kane Farrell, and then objects in your rear view mirror may be closer than they appear. A little Jurassic Park reference from Dwayne there. I also liked, I think it was when Liam Fawcett kicked one late in the second quarter, and I think it was Brad Johnson on the team. There was a Fawcett knew he'd flushed it from him, and there was kind of a Dwayne kind of went, "Oh, that was good," and Johnson goes, "Oh, yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that one," and Dwayne's like, or said something like, "I thought I stole that one from you," and Dwayne goes, "No, I appreciate that." So I like that there's like this sphere in commentary where like, if someone's with Dwayne and they say a Dwayneism, they acknowledge that that's something that Dwayne would say.
Yeah. I'm blocking out all the Dwayneisms at the moment because they all tend to not be about ports.
There's not too many good ones at the moment.
Shut up.
I mean, for you, there was a bit of Paraka chat when Fawcett popped up.
There
in
was,
the game.
yeah.
So there was, particularly when he kicked the goal, it was like, oh, you would have flushed some of those ones back in your Paraka days.
You played at Paraka, didn't you, Dwayne?
So yeah, while that Liam Fawcett's played 2 AFL games in 2 years, and they've both been against Port, and Paraka has come up liberally in both, but a weird world we live in, isn't it, Jamie? I assume you're about ready to get to the segments and we can wrap this one up.
Certainly is. Let's do it.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Grady's best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks cruelly.
Alrighty, the Wilson Gray Award for this week. Last week's winner was Jamie's nomination, which was Whitlock's mark, his clutch mark, floating across the front of the pack to take a mark that he eventually slotted for a goal. But of course, the Wilson Gray being rewarding moments on the field that inspire us outside of goal scoring. And Whitlock's mark last week from Jamie, his nomination won last week. I get to go first this week. And there was a few moments in this game, obviously being sometimes there's games that it's really, really tough to find them, but I actually did have a decent list here. I was really struggling to narrow it down, but I want to reward something that we've kind of touched on before. I'm going to go with Jack Lukosius's kick ranging from halfback that went about, it was almost an intercontinental missile, the distance it covered.
Yeah, Cal. Well, it's 14th and 15th on the loud wall. 18th. Look at this long launch. So Durden gets an opportunity here to have a bounce and stroll in. He pokes the pass. Richards gets there in the hole.
Well, that was just one of the great moves of the day, Jono.
It was like the new space program Anton was just launching from way, way back. We're going to the moon. Look at this one. That is a ripper into space. He could have gone all the way. See Richards there charging. That is a great passage of play.
Going from halfback to Durden, just a brief moment of us opening up the field. But yeah, Lukosius's kick went, it looked like 60 metres to Durden on the run, who then slotted it to Richards, who then eventually finished the goal from a set shot. But just a really, really nice play, and just a great moment of what Jack Lukosius can provide. Again, to your point about Justin Westhoff, coming up, just, moving down to halfback, ranging a kick out, a beautiful, beautiful kick as well. Just elite disposal to go 50 metres from your feet, 50, 60 metres off the foot on the run, and just on a dime for Durden to just mark it on the run and continue running. It was really, really nice. So I think it was about halfway through the second, towards the back end of the second quarter, actually, just before Richmond unfortunately got on their run, but ultimately a goal that helped us, build a lead that was insurmountable for Richmond. So yeah, Lukosius's kick is my Wilson Gray nomination for the week.
Yeah, great nom. Definitely on my list because it was sexual. Just effortless kick. It's nice to have two guys that just kick a bomb and it looks effortless. It's kind of poetry in motion. Definitely on my list. So my other ones, it involves Jack Lukosius, but it's not necessarily about Jack Lukosius. It is Jordan Sweet's Don't Argue in the fourth quarter that he then puts on the boot and hits Lukosius on a lead.
By Drew, who almost didn't take possession and still got a kick away. Or a thump down towards Sweet and Drew. A little bit of a don't argue on the meatball Prestia. And Lukosius casually takes the grab, and a lot of mentions. Yeah, it's a good one. 8th year in the AFL.
That was great. Loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Love a Don't Argue. And particularly when it's a big boy ruckman, but then he also just gets a sexy, efficient disposal away. So Jordan Sweet, that's for me.
That's the one on Dion Prestia, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I have a note, because I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, and it was in the fourth quarter, because there was a sweet Don't Argue on Prestia, because the commentators bring up like, oh, sweet, a little Don't Argue on the human meatball.
Meatball, yeah. It was definitely that, yeah. Just saw him and went, nope, not happening. Pushed him away.
Yeah. No, I had that in my list as well. So that's a great one for you to bring up, because I was almost brought it up in our review when we got to Sweet, but then a lot of midfield chat there, and it kind of got lost in the. But yeah, I'm really, really lost in the sauce is a great way to analogize that as well, because human meatball, and now I want a foot-long meatball sub from Subway. Anyway, a very, very good nomination from you, and two fun nominations too. We don't, a Don't Argue. I don't think we've had, there's something we love in footy, and they're Wilson Gray quintessential, but we haven't had too many Don't Argues in it, like a proper old school Don't Argue in our nominations over the last year and a half, 2 years, I think.
It's because Sam Powell-Pepper has been injured a lot.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is a very good point, because he is a proponent and really an exquisite artist in the Don't Argue realm. So yeah, no, that's I'm looking forward to the votes on this. Of course, if you're listening and you're a new listener, welcome. For the Wilson Gray that we're just talking about now, and of course the goal of the week that's coming up, we pop them on Instagram on Wednesday. So we're recording on Tuesday, the 7th of April. Whenever we record, whether it be a Tuesday or a Monday night, the Wilson Gray and goal of the week nominations pop into the Instagram stories on the evening after. So of course this episode, they'll be up on Wednesday evening and up for 24 hours from then for you to vote on which one you like more. So there'll of course be the video for you to see, and then you can vote on which one you prefer, and then they of course go into the mixer for the ultimate award at the end of the year, which is the Wilson Gray for the year and the goal of the year award at the back end of the year. And speaking of goal of the week, let's get to it.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint, Stevie Motlop, what a time! Oh! He is floating on air now!
righty, goal of the week. Jamie gets to go first and on this one, but just for a moment, I'll mention that he went 2 from 2 last week in the nominations. His nomination of Lockie Jones' set shot at the back end of the West Coast game last week.
Yes.
Very
thank
nice.
you, everyone.
That won the nomination to go in the mixer for the end of the year awards. Jamie 2 from 2 last week, and we'll see how he goes this week, and he gets to go first on goal of the week for this week.
There were so many better goals in last week's game as well. I only picked it because it was funny. Like I said in last week's review. Thanks everyone for jumping on board with the comedy. Yeah. What are you doing here? I didn't actually realize though that he followed what's his name, Waterman, to the back line, who West Coast had sent back to plug up our forward line. So opportune moment for Lockie, but that's great. Yeah, it kind of felt like that though in the moment, but we're just like, why are you there? Anyway, digressing. Kind of deja vu with this one because, well, both in this game but for the season, Sweet ripping it out the ruck again.
Jordan takes it out of the ruck, and Sweet snaps the goal in his 50th. He's got the 20 family and friends over from Adelaide, and a moment for them to cheer.
So Richmond couldn't set even to get back onto his leg here to defend it with the ruckman taking it out.
Just didn't have the strength in the legs.
I want more. I want to keep seeing this happen when Sweet's matched up against someone who he can push around. Just try it. It's a bit like a torp, Malcolm Blight said, you get at least one shot at a torp. If you fuck it up, put it away. But if you connect, then you get another shot. And with Sweet, if he's in and around goal, I want to see him try push someone out the way and kick a goal because he's done it twice now. And that's my nomination.
Yeah, I love that as a nomination. Obviously on my shortlist as well. Wasn't a whole lot of great nominatable goals in this one, but there's a few good ones as well. I do like that he did that to, especially, Samson Ryan. Like I think Tim Ryan was the one that was on him in that moment. After there was a little bit of argy-bargy between them in this game, obviously, with the Ryan little gut punch on Sweet as well, and which would set up a goal for us as well. A relatively simple one, but it's nice. That's 2 of those we've seen this year from Jordan Sweet now, and this one was particularly tasty. Just really, really just big man shit, and just wheeled around. He was already moving around to get in position for the snapshot before the ball even came to his hand because he just knew he already had it beat. So.
Absolutely. Just try it. If it's effectively buying you a goal in a sense. If it puts one more on the board, just give it a go.
Yeah, no, agreed. My nomination now, there's one that I would have nominated if it was a goal, and it would have been Whitlock's goal from 53, but he didn't score. It faded right for a point, so I can't nominate that one, obviously, because it's not point of the week. I'm going to go, and it's basically between 2 Luco shots, and I'm going to go with it's probably the relatively simpler finish ultimately, but I'm going to go with his crumbing one because I like the overall. Obviously, Lukosius kicks 2 goals in about a minute in the fourth quarter. He kicks the crumbing goal, and he kicks a really nice set shot from 50 a minute later. I'm going to nominate the crumbing goal because I like the fact that we had, and the commentators called it out, that we had the setup that Jason Horne-Francis, the crummer, was flying for the shot, and the guy, the key forward in Lukosius was the one that crumbed the ball. But Lukosius, who would have been the one, traditionally crashing the pack, and maybe Jason Horne-Francis crumbing, it was the other way around. Lukosius just read the play really well, sat off and read the fall of the ball. Obviously finished very well.
Great to see him back out there after he went off with an ankle injury. Drives it long. Horne-Francis set himself. It ricochets down to Lukosius, and he bounces it through. And Port Adelaide closing in on their first away win for the season.
Well, those 2 have been superb all night, all afternoon.
Here he comes.
There he goes.
A good jump.
That's the crumb.
Again, there's a callback to last week and when he didn't finish so well from a very similar situation. But finished very well in this situation. And I just enjoy the kind of, again, a crumbing finish like that, relatively simple maybe, but still classy, looked good. There was a good aesthetic to it, but the setup of it, the fact that he's roving off the pack, the setup of it, smart play, good goal, Lukosius. Stuff we love to see. The fact that he can finish dob a set shot from 50 and crumb a goal. There's a lot of love for Lukosius in the segments this week, which is really, really nice. Again, two nice goals to throw into the mix and see what the people decide on the Instagram story. So yeah, get around them. Get around the vote. We do appreciate the fact that people get around them. And particularly last week, the West Coast game, I will say I really, really appreciate you guys getting around it because it was a rough game. Sometimes I notice the votes are down when a game is poorer, but there was a lot of votes last week, and I appreciate the people that got around it. So, yeah, keep getting around it. We do enjoy it. And if you occasionally get replies saying, oh, this is what I would have picked, I love the people that kind of
keep
say
them coming.
Alternative picks as well. So yeah, keep the engagement coming. Get involved. We do love it. Player of the Year votes coming up. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. Oh boy, had some fun with this week. Well, actually, I don't enjoy it when I'm really trying to fit people into the votes and I just can't fit them in. But yeah, it's always good to have a week where you've got a fair few options for your Player of the Year voting. Of course, our Player of the Year voting, 1 through 5 voting, with 5 votes going to best on field, 1 fifth best on field, obviously. I get to go first this week, and of course, me and Jamie do not share our thoughts on. We chat about the match, but we don't know who we're voting for. So Jamie's about to hear my votes for the first time. My one vote, Darcy Byrne-Jones. We talked about him at the start of the episode, more or less, and I really wanted to reward him for. I think there's a aspect of it that is the fact that he's gone back, having not played the role in 3 or 4 years now, and done the role so well. 26 disposals at almost 70%, 10 marks, 7 intercepts, 6 score involvements, a couple 1%ers, 5 ground balls. Just a really, really well-rounded performance, and of course the leadership back there as well. All righty, my 2 votes go to Jordan Sweet. I think he had some moments in the game, and this is probably the one that I debated with, but then at times I just look back at the stat line and his impact on the game. 15 disposals, 10 of them contested, which is incredible stuff. Like, again, to your point you made on an episode last week, I think, about his midfield mindset. He really gets involved in the contest. 25 hitouts with 11 to advantage, which is by far the best kind of advantage of the ruckman, and showed his dominance in the ruck game in the game. 3 1%ers, 6 score involvements, 5 clearances, all from stoppage as well, 5 marks, 4 tackles, which is second best on field behind Willem Drew as well. So just kind of a well-rounded performance from Jordan Sweet. And of course, the goal that we just mentioned in the nominations as well. Obviously went into the game as the out-and-out, probably experienced best ruckman on the ground, but he made that experience show, which is important. If you're going to go in with a matchup that is favourable, make it known. And Jordan Sweet certainly did that. 3 votes I'm giving to Zach Butters. I think if he played the full game at the rate that he did in the second half, he probably could have got best on ground, as he often does. But I think a first half that resulted in him needing a little bit of a stern talk from his coach and Josh Carr at halftime. I think that kind of, if you ever need a player of Butters' stature ever needs talking to from the coach, then you probably don't deserve to be best on ground unless you come out and get 40 disposals in a half. But 30 disposals, 10 contested. He had incredible efficiency at 86%, 6 clearances, 8 score involvements, 400, almost 500 metres gain, 495 metres gain, and 7 ground balls. He had a very, very good Zach Butters game by the end of it. It's just, again, you would have liked to have seen a bit more of it in the first half when, again, as the on-field captain, you're looking for a bit of leadership from the off. So a bit more in the first half, and he probably gets a little bit more up there. Kane Farrell gets my 4 votes. He possibly could have. He was probably on best on ground state before maybe the rolled ankle, but he still played out the second half, which I find commendable. 24 disposals, which I think 15 of them were in the first half, 70% efficiency, 9 score involvements, 10 intercepts, 808 metres gained, 6 inside 50, 6 rebound 50s, 3 1%ers, 5 ground balls, even had 4 bounces on the day. Like, he just filled out the stat line really, really nicely. And at times when everyone else looked like they didn't know how to execute a decent, like, comparable to a lot of other skills, he had some exquisite moments from the foot that just, again, showed some of the best of Kane Farrell. And again, who knows what this game could have been like if he hadn't been playing with somewhat of a ginger foot. He doesn't have any injury list designation for this week, which is nice. So hopefully it was really just a real turn that amounted in nothing. But he certainly did look a little bit ginger in the second half, but he still played out a really, really good game. And, still had over 300 meters gained in the second half beyond, his incredible first half. So his meters gained in the second half were as comparable to a lot of players for a full game. So very, very good stuff from Kane Farrell, and one of his better games, and one of those games that kind of reminds you of why we like him to back there so much when he can get his game going like that. Had to give my best on ground to Aliir. 23 disposals, 14 contested, which is by far the best on ground, which is not an area you see Aliir in too much, but he had some incredible moments down back where he, ground ball gets, which he had 8 of, which was the best on field. He obviously had the 18 intercepts, which is best on field as well. But the ground ball kind of intercept game and some of those moments where he had to turn his back towards his goal that he's defending and gather a ball that's on the bounce, and then whilst turning and burning an opposition forward, were really, really impressive. He had the 8 marks, 6 of those were contested. He had the 5 1%ers. He went at 65% disposal efficiency. Often, again, just a general down there. Had a couple of disposals that were poor, a couple of turnovers, so I'll acknowledge that. But I think by and large, what he did down there, leading the defence and ultimately a frustrating a Richmond forward line to the point that I think Dwayne Russell at one point said, you should try not kicking it in the direction of Aliir. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the commentary, was like Aliir was Aliir everywhere in this game, and his stat line proved that. And he had the 10 coaches. He had got the perfect votes in the coaches' votes, and he gets the perfect votes from me.
Yeah, fantastic. As I'm going second, just a couple of honourable mentions. We've spoken about Jake Lukosius. JHF, yeah, unfortunately had the spotlight on him for no good reason on Saturday night. But then I noticed a lot of people just mentioning some of his averages for a forward mid, actually where you'd probably want them to be with that split. Jace Burgoyne as well. We didn't speak much about him. Just think he's tracking pretty well to start the season. And when you started it with DBJ and Sweet, I thought we were going to Yahtzee, but I actually have Farrell at 3 and Butters at 4. We're splitting hairs, I think, for the top 3 players. Maybe for that 3 and 4 spot. I think Aliir was clearly best on ground. When the pressure was on in that first half, he stood up like no other. And then he continued that throughout the second half as well. Clear best on ground for me. Spoken about him and his start to the year already. Not much more to add. Farrell, he got caught holding the ball a few times, but what I would say is his last 2 weeks have been very much what we need out of a Kane Farrell. And if he can stay at that level, and even maybe go even a touch further than that in games that we really need him to, that'd be fucking sensational. And Han Dustin will be but a distant memory at that point in time. Just wanted to go over Jordan Sweet as well. Like, really, really enjoying what he's bringing to our side. I never doubted him as our first ruck. And like I mentioned in our wrap of the game, I think it seems like he's playing with a bit of a point to prove. And if he has to prove it for the whole year, we're going to get some good output out of him. He is. I mean, he had, you probably mentioned it, 5 clearances again. So you had 6 last week, 5 this week. He's getting up there. I said it in our review of the West Coast game, I'm not expecting the big guy to carry a heavy clearance load, but he's trying things out. You can't get done holding the ball for taking the ball out of the ruck. So he's throwing caution to the wind on a few occasions if he feels he's in a good position to try and burst through a stoppage out of instead of a hit out, I should say, then he's going for it. Being a pseudo midfielder, 200 plus centimeter midfielder at the moment, and 86% time on ground. So it's a fair effort. Just really impressed with him and want him to. He kind of started last season pretty well, and then he had a real dip in the middle, and then he finished the year really strong. I really want to see Jordan Sweet, because again, he's 27 as well. He might have only played his 50th game on the weekend, but he's big, he's strong, he looks in good nick, he seems in pretty good form. Let's keep that form line consistent now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and a good point to bring up that it was his 50th game, and got into the votes for both of us on his 50th game. Kicked a goal, which was acknowledged by, I think, Kelly Underwood in the commentary when he kicked the goal. So, which was really, really nice. So, and again, it's just really, really cool to see, these clearances from stoppage, and the fact that that's twice he's done that now in the forward 50. That's kind of something that he feels like he can do. Is like, if I've got the matchup I want and kind of the positioning I want, that I can rip this out, and a kind of innate nous for finding the goals in what you nominated in your goal of the week. And it's just shout out to Aaliyah, by the way. He was very, very close to a couple of Wilson Gray nominations. His mark on the line early in the first quarter, I think, where he kind of took the mark, whereas like a lot of players would just see that over the line, but he had the confidence to mark it, and they even kind of did the slow motion replay to make sure of it. He had a couple of really nice ground ball gathers that were really, really smooth, where he kind of gathered it and just kept on running like smoothly like a gazelle. And just, there were a few moments from Aaliyah, who obviously best on ground could have got it. Yeah, so Sweet and Aaliyah both kind of in and around the nominations for all categories this week, which I think shows just how good their games were. Love it. Not a game to write home about, but as we've gone, an hour and 50 on this one, one that we found plenty of talking points out of anyway. So really, really good stuff as always. A quick look ahead for the last 5-10 minutes here. It is obviously gather round, so we're about to obviously have the gather round flags in the background for those watching on YouTube since last year when I got hold of them. But it is gather round now, and really, really excited for it. Of course, we play Sunday evening, closing out gather round this year against St Kilda. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful game, just aesthetically. St Kilda in a gather round Guernsey, that's a lot of colour. Us in the fully charged Guernsey, it's going to be a good colour match for me. Watching a lot of college sports and football and American sports and international soccer, I love a colour match. I love two teams wearing colour. There's one of my favourite games, Oregon versus Oregon State. The Civil War in 2009 was one of the rare occasions that Oregon wore bright Kelly green and Oregon State wore their orange. So it was green versus orange on field. It's just great. They don't like to do color match. They don't like to do two colors too much in American sports because color blindness of those that are watching on TV. They don't like two colors, but occasionally you get it, and it's wonderful. We get it too much in AFL to the point of players on field not knowing who they're kicking to. But I think our matchup, I think Kilda Port matchup is often good. Like we wore our throwback Guernsey last year against St Kilda, and so there's just like the teal versus what St Kilda are wearing is just a naturally good color match, and I'm looking forward to the matchup on field this week. Weather's looking good on Sunday, obviously a maximum of 19, cloudy, but not the rain that's looking like we're going to get. That might affect the starter gather around this Thursday. Suffering your Jocks Crows fans down there. On our end, Todd Marshall is probably the only real one that's predicted that could be back this week. He's a test on that ankle that he's been out with for the last week. Obviously, we've had the news, unfortunate news in the weekend that Ollie Lord did his ACL at the Sandford level, so he's out for the season. But other than that, beyond obviously, there's a lot of selection based on fit players and who we could change, as we've talked about a bit in this episode. But Todd Marshall's the only one out of the injury list that is possibly could be back this week. St Kilda have Cooper Sharman, Paddy Dow, and Liam Henry as tests to come back in there. They've got a reasonably sized injury list as well. So two teams coming in with a few selection issues and in somewhat varying degrees of St Kilda, of course, coming off coming off the bye, so they've had a bit of a break. But we've got two teams that have had some interesting kind of off-field kind of issues on-field issues in the first month of the season, in that questions being asked. St Kilda, obviously, with their massive recruiting spree, have had questions asked because their output has been interesting. Nasiah Wangani-Malera has been tagged reasonably well at times in the first month of the season. So these are two sides coming in with things to prove in gather round. And of course, Port Adelaide also coming in with a 3-0 record in gather round and looking to keep it.
I'd like the unbeaten record to continue. Again, yeah, we need to get a form line going. You know, I don't want the yo-yo of loss, win, loss, win, loss to continue. It is quite important, and I obviously think we can win. You know, going into last year's gather round, no one gave us a chance against Hawthorn, and we played some of the most perfect football that we did all season, particularly in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's what I mean. Getting our selections right is obviously of most importance, and getting the mix within those lines right. I think we have enough fit players now, excuse me, to just build on kind of a underwhelming start first month of our season. Now with Ollie Wines with a game under his belt and the re-inclusion of Todd Marshall, yeah, I think the balance is as good as we probably could hope for. I might as well just predict my ins and outs. I'm going Marshall in and Lorenz in. Probably would have figured that out from the discussion earlier. But my outs are two midfielders in Jack Watkins and Ewan McKinlay, to go off the back of my chat in regards to Miles Bergman and pushing him up into the midfield with Todd Marshall. Because effectively, Lockie Jones and Miles Bergman kind of had to play as pseudo tools against Richmond. And so bringing Todd Marshall back in obviously allows for Miles Bergman to go up the field. And yeah, I think we need to start seeing Miles Bergman around stoppage. We were all led to believe that that's where he was headed off the back of last year and heading into this season. I think those changes, subtle, just a couple, rewarding some form, as well as bringing Todd Marshall back in, because I think we liked what we saw from him. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking at this point in time.
Yeah. The Todd Marshall one would be interesting, because I think there's still the kind of the reading the tea leaves of how they talked about his injury report was, still maybe a little bit 50-50, but they're going to let the test run its course. And I'd certainly hope to see him back in. It would be wonderful to watch Todd Marshall play at home again. And certainly just want to see him actually get a decent run of games under his belt down back, rather than dealing with these little niggles. So, and I like the Will Lorenz one as well. That's, and particularly probably the big watch for the weekend. We'll obviously talk about it when we do the preview in a couple of nights, more in depth. But the Miles Bergman shouts very, very good, because I just think he's a player at the moment that just needs to actually get his hand on the ball. Like, he hasn't had enough touches, enough possessions, enough build into the season yet. Obviously, the injuries aside, like we just need to get he's going to be a player that he thrives once he gets a run going and doesn't need too much, but we actually just need to get his hand on the ball. And sometimes that's what you've got to do. Whatever sport you're playing, in a team sport, a ball sport like this, you just need to find a way to get your talented players, if they're in a bit of a rut of form, just get them around the ball, around the puck, whatever sport you're watching. Again, it's just like they just need, he just looks like he's not finding his rhythm because he's not getting him enough opportunity. I think just getting him on ball will just kind of put that spark into the gas chamber and get him going. So, yeah, definitely agree. And what better opportunity than under the lights at Adelaide Oval in the close of gather round, what has become just an incredible tradition in the AFL world. So we'll certainly talk about it more when we do the squad show, the preview show later this week. And we'll certainly talk about just our excitement for gather round, certainly some festivities ahead for ourselves over the weekend, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So, yeah, we'll leave that to the preview show later in the week. But thank you for joining us. As always, get around the socials if you're not following. If you're listening to the podcast, and I'm sure you're listening and following on a lot of socials, but we do find that there's new people popping up every week. So if you're listening to the podcast but don't realize, we have social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever it may be. Get around them, follow, look for the Creed on those areas, and you'll find us, and you can see our random shit posting throughout the week. And of course, rate and review and like the podcast, whether it be if you're on YouTube, like the videos every time you're watching them. Even if you're listening on Spotify, if you have a YouTube account, pop across, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and like the videos, because that helps get the podcast out there and in the algorithms. And of course, if you're just listening on Spotify or Apple Pods, wherever you are, like and rate the podcast 5 stars, please, and thank you. We do appreciate everyone that listens and joins us, the new listeners that are joining up, the old but love listeners. I said old, and I was just like, I shouldn't call you old. You're the ones that have been the OGs, the ones that have been with us from the start, or if you've been with us for a while. Certainly looking forward to shout out Stu, who's mentioned he's going to be over at Gather Round, so we're looking forward to catching up with him and everyone else that's listening as well. We do appreciate everyone that's been along for the journey, whether they're new or old. We do appreciate the support. So thank you, and looking forward to a big Gather Round week coming up.
Yeah, nothing more to add from me. We'll see you later in the week for the preview show, but yeah, enjoy the days leading up to it, and thanks for joining us.
Can't appear.
Speaking of Stu, can't appear.
Can't appear.
Cheers, guys.